Greetings and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. Today's episode is about children of the Law of One. According to the entity known as Ra, the fall of Atlantis about 11,000 years ago caused positively polarized Atlanteans to flee to mountainous areas of Tibet, Peru, and Turkey. Children of the Law of One, The Lost Teachings of Atlantis, is a book by Jon Peniel published in 1998 that describes esoteric spiritual teachings that Peniel supposedly learned after being led to a hidden monastery in Tibet, where he joined a group of spiritual masters who traced their lineage back to Atlantis. Who were the children of the Law of One, and how do their teachings align with the Law of One as we've come to know it? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found in the list of study groups at the L&L Research website shown on your screen. We do also have a Facebook group, and we meet on Zoom twice a week, Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m., Saturdays from 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com to get on our mailing list. We send out emails once a week with Zoom links and information on what we're talking about that week. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of previous podcast episodes, as well as recordings of our monthly Q&As with Jim McCarty. Just go to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button if you'd like to get notifications when we upload new videos, and contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you'd like to join any of our Q&As with Jim. As mentioned, today's topic is Children of the Law of One. Let's go ahead and meet our panelists. Panelists, let our viewers know who you are and where you're calling from, starting with Neely.
Hi, I'm Neely, and I'm calling from Happy Valley, Oregon. I've always been fascinated with Atlantis, and I'm so looking forward to the conversation today.
Me too, for sure. So great to have you on again. And Diane?
Hi, I'm calling from Massachusetts. Hello, hello. It's very hot here. And I am looking forward to this. I also love Atlantis and also this book. I love this book.
Indeed. Yes, everyone on the panel has read this book already, viewers, in case you're wondering. And Elijah?
Hello, I'm Elijah. I live 2 hours south of Sydney in Australia, and I too am very fascinated by Atlantis, always have been, and looking forward to diving into today's discussion.
So great to have you on for the first time and hopefully not the last. I did want to remind our viewers, as always, that none of us here are experts or authorities on the Law of One or children of the Law of One. We are just ordinary wanderers and seekers like you, trying to understand spiritual things that seem important to us. Anything that any of us say could be wrong. You're welcome to disagree with anything or everything that any of us say. If you are already familiar with the Law of One and the entity known as Quo, you might want to skip ahead to the chapter on Atlantis and Tibet. Otherwise, for those who are new to the Law of One, you can think of the Law of One as a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one and that one thing is love. Most of the reading passages that we usually look at from L&L Research came through a process known as channeling. You can think of channeling as a form of telepathic communication between humans and entities, such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, inner planes beings, spirits of the deceased, higher self, etc. A channel basically serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through. There are two types of channeling that have been developed by our friends at L&L Research. Trance channeling is when the channel is in a trance state, subconscious or unconscious, as if asleep, meaning they're not aware at all of what's coming out of their mouth as they're saying the words. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Ra back in the early 1980s. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they are only somewhat aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're saying them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Quo, starting in the mid-1980s up to present day. Who is Quo? You can think of Quo as a group entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at 6th density, Latwi at 5th density, Hatan at 4th density. You can think of a social memory complex as a planetary consciousness. It would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind. You can think of densities or dimensions as different levels of consciousness or reality, since those two things are so closely intertwined. Imagine, if you will, that the elements of earth, air, fire, and water have some form of consciousness, as many indigenous peoples around the world have been saying for centuries they do. We refer to this as first density. You can think of second density as the level of consciousness of plants and animals. Clearly, a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of inanimate matter. You can think of third density as the level of consciousness of humans and cetaceans like whales and dolphins. Again, a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of plants and other animals. You can think of fourth density as the level of consciousness of the social memory complex. Again, it would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind. Clearly a significant quantum leap in consciousness above and beyond that of an individual person. You can think of fifth and sixth densities as whatever would be comparable quantum leaps above and beyond. There are many more things we could say about that. If you're interested, check out our podcast episode on densities and dimensions. Otherwise, suffice it to say, the entity known as Quo appears to be a group entity made up of three planetary consciousnesses: Ra at 6th density, Latwi at 5th density, Hatan at 4th density. First contact with Quo was made by the LNL research channeling team in 1986, almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984. They have been channeled every month since then, up to present day, by the LNL research channeling team. Transcripts of those sessions can be found in the LNL Conscious Channeling Library shown on your screen. Having said that, let's take a look at a passage from Ra on Atlantis and Tibet. In session 10, question 15 of the Ra contact, Ra said, "The Atlantean race was a very conglomerate social complex which began to form approximately 31,000 years in the past of your space-time continuum illusion. It was a slow-growing and very agrarian society until approximately 15,000 of your years ago. It reached quickly a high technological understanding which caused it to be able to use intelligent infinity in a less informative manner. We may add that they used intelligent energy as well, manipulating greatly the natural influxes of the indigo or pineal ray from divine or infinite energy. Thus, they were able to create life forms. This they began to do instead of healing and perfecting their own mind-body-spirit complexes, turning their distortions toward what you may call the negative. Approximately 11,000 of your years ago, the first of the what you call wars caused approximately 40% of this population to leave the density by means of disintegration of the body. The second and most devastating of the conflicts occurred approximately 10,821 years in the past, according to your illusion. This created an earth-changing configuration, and the large part of Atlantis was no more, having been inundated. 3 of the positively oriented of the Atlantean groups left this geographical locus before that devastation, placing themselves in the mountain areas of what you call Tibet, what you call Peru, and what you call Turkey. Really, so many things we could talk about here, and I think I'll just start by noting for the viewers, again, the reason why they're saying 15,000 is this person was channeling the voice that was coming through. The person who was saying these words really didn't know what was coming out of their mouth at all. So it's amazing that all of this makes as much sense as it does. What do you think, Neely? Any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, one thing that I was thinking about is the responsibility, meaning that the Atlanteans received a very quick understanding of how to use technology. And it feels like Ra is trying to teach us that they received it before they were spiritually evolved enough to use it in a benevolent way. And thus, when I'm trying to think about it in our reality these days, about weapons of mass destruction that are in the hands of I don't want to say unevolved, but I want to say maybe not as spiritually advanced entities that can definitely cause destruction and devastation to big, big parts of the world. So that's kind of like rise. It's like a cautionary tale for us. Look at what
For sure.
happened then.
40% of the population disintegrated. That must have been quite a war, quite a conflict. Yeah. Oh, what do you think, Diane? Any thing to add?
Yeah, I think one of the things, and what we have to worry about right now, because I really do think that many of us were there. We are Atlanteans who did this, and now we're coming back with the opportunity to correct this. When I do look at this, my biggest concern is the selfishness. That as they were creating these life forms, they were not doing it for the good. They were doing it for their own pleasure, their own ease,
Right.
self-pleasure, materialistic needs.
Right.
And in doing so, they started to forget, hey, we're
Right.
all one.
Right.
And that's the thing that frightens me, because here we are again. And I am very comfortable with everything is alive. So we're going to be creating things now. We're creating robotic things. What happens now as they become better and sentient? Do we respect this as a new kind of a life form? I don't know.
Right. Right.
So that's my
Yeah, and those are good sneak previews of what we're going to be seeing coming up in passages in the not too distant future. I definitely agree with you. There's so many things that I see described in this book that really ring true today, seem to be describing very much. And as you mentioned, there was a session where Quo said everyone who was incarnated in Atlantis for the fall of Atlantis is incarnated here on Earth at this time. That was like in the 1980s, but I'm guessing it still holds true very much today.
Edgar
What do you think,
Cayce
Elijah?
said-
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Diane.
Edgar Cayce said the same thing.
Right. Yeah. 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 And I believe we're going to be doing a future podcast on that. Elijah, any thoughts to add?
I love all of your thoughts so far, very much reminiscent of my own thoughts about this specifically. But the one thing I wanted to also add was I love how Ra talks about the importance, especially on the service to others path, of disciplining the personality and the consequences that can result of a lack of a disciplined personality. And to me, this passage here kind of puts quite eloquently into perspective what can happen as a result of a lack of disciplined personality or the lack of a strength of will. And so, 11,000 years ago, we are still today feeling the ripples of this conflict that happened. And it really puts into perspective the importance of really knowing why you're doing and what you're doing and how what we're doing now can impact even generations in the future.
For sure. Yeah, there was a channeling session where Quo said that so much of what we are experiencing today is part of rebalancing the karma that came from the fall of Atlantis. They said in a separate session, I think, that in metaphysical realms, the name of planet Earth is Atlantis. The energies of Atlantis are so much the energies of humanity and people that they call Earth Atlantis in some metaphysical realms. That's super fascinating. Did anybody else have any thoughts on anything here from this passage before we look at something else? I did want to note for sure or highlight the part in the first paragraph where they talked about using intelligent energy to create life forms. That's something we're going to see pop up in the Children of the Law of One not too long from now. Otherwise, let's talk a little bit about Edgar Cayce. For viewers who are not familiar with Edgar Cayce, he is known as the Sleeping Prophet. He was an American clairvoyant who successfully diagnosed diseases and recommended treatments for thousands of clients while asleep. During thousands of transcribed sessions, he answered questions on many subjects, including healing, reincarnation, Atlantis, and future events. He is widely considered to be one of the founders of the New Age movement in the United States, and his time was back in the 1930s. So this came from a session where Cayce was speaking in his sleep, and this was from January 9th, 1934. He said, "There is soon to come into the world a body, one of our own number here, that to many has been a representative of a sect, of a thought, of a philosophy, of a group, yet one beloved of all men in all places, where the universality of God and the earth has been proclaimed, where the oneness of the Father as God is known and is consciously magnified in the activities of individuals that proclaim the acceptable day of the Lord. Hence, that one John, the beloved in the earth, his name shall be John, and also at the place where he met face to face, Peniel." Note that Cayce's spoken words were recorded by his secretary. Cayce did not spell names out, and words in brackets are the secretary's, not Cayce's. So when you see the word Peniel here, it means Cayce did not actually say that, but it was added by his secretary. I'm guessing because she took it in the context of this part that follows, which is, "Who shall proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord in him that has been born in the earth in America? Those from that land where there has been the regeneration, not only of the body, but the mind and the spirit of men. They shall come and declare that Jon Peniel is giving to the world the new order of things, not that these have been proclaimed have been refused, but that they are made plain in the minds of men, that they may know the truth, the life, the light will make them free." Really interesting. I mean, if you respect Cayce's abilities, then the fact that he identifies this person by name in ways that seem very much associated with children of the Law of One. Super interesting. Did you have any thoughts on these readings here, Diane?
The thing that stands out for me, I love Cayce, but, and the Law of One, and that's where I first heard the Law of One, was studying Cayce.
Oh, interesting.
But
Yeah.
one of the things that even this that always boggles my mind is when you have somebody who is talking about in the future, this person is going to appear in the future. So that kind of causes me to look at time a little differently. Cayce says the only time is now, all time is now. And I can kind of see what he's talking about here. And I've had my own experiences where I was given information that didn't happen for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I was given very specific information. I don't understand how it works, but it fascinates me.
Yeah, time is definitely a tricky, slippery, dreamy like thing for sure. Diane, I'm having a little bit of hard time hearing you. If there's a way to turn up the volume on your microphone, I'd say go for it. That'd be great. Elijah, did you have anything to add?
I'm not very familiar with Edgar Cayce. Like, I have heard of his works, and he's come up quite a bit in a lot of the Law of One discussions specifically. But I just think it's cool that he gave such a specific prediction, like down to the name Jon Peniel.
Yeah.
And whether or not Jon Peniel's work is held with reverence or not, I just think it's interesting that in the context of the Law of One, that there is a pattern of inquiry where you can see all these ideas beginning to be spread out.
For sure.
I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that a whole bunch of his readings on Atlantis were compiled by his sons into a book called Edgar Cayce on Atlantis. And in that book, he mentions the Law of One specifically, like almost 50 times, and does say specifically children of the Law of One many, many times in there. So there's really a strong correlation between those two sources, I would say. Neely, did you have any thoughts on anything here from this passage?
Yeah, I actually want to come to it from a different angle, if you will. Um, Firstly, it's probably not the first time, but I did hear about Edgar Cayce in The Loved One. So Rod definitely had said that he was reading the Akashic records and that there is, credibility to what he said. However, Ra were talking about prophecy, and they really emphasized that prophecy is just a probability. So,
Right.
so there's an encouragement not to put stock in the specific details of a prophecy because it's only one possibility probability vortex that can or cannot happen. Which brings me
Right.
to the thought, what came first, the chicken or the egg? So could it have been that Jon Peniel, who wrote the book, or the author known as Jon Peniel, read Edgar Cayce's Prophecies and the Law of One before writing this book and thus bringing it into fruition? So just kind of like another avenue of thinking about all of those events.
Yeah, definitely worth consideration. And I don't remember when the Edgar Cayce on Atlantis book was published. It was published well after his death, so I don't remember the exact year. But yeah, I think that is certainly worth keeping in mind. We always look at everything with a questioning, skeptical eye, I think is healthy. If no other questions, why don't we go ahead and take a look at. I did want to note that for our viewers, yes, Edgar Cayce on Atlantis, Children of the Law of One, The Lost Teachings of Atlantis, and Convoluted Universe, Book One by Dolores Cannon. Those are three books that I have read that I would say really overlap a lot and that seem to be telling a lot of the same kind of things about what happened in Atlantis. And the clashes between these positively, negatively polarized groups. So check them out if you're interested, viewers. Otherwise, yeah, let's go ahead and look at some passages from Children of the Law of One. First of all, some about oneness. These are four separate passages from different parts of the book. But in one, Jon Peniel says, the world's problems are personal problems, and all the actions that create the problems come from our delusion that we are separate from the one and the selfishness that results from that delusion. The real source of all bad things is simply selfish people acting selfishly. Another time says, all is one, there is no other. We once experienced only oneness, one being with no divisions or separate parts. There was no time, no space, nothing other than the us. And lastly says, if you want to live in a world of unselfishly loving people who are kind and care about each other, you simply need to be like one of those people or change to become one. A lot of great stuff in here. Obviously, that implies the whole idea of oneness, which is central to the Law of One as we know it. And there's many, many other places in the book where he says very similar things to this. What do you think, Diane? Any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, yeah. The I think you can look at the law of attraction. To be one of these people or change to become one. If you want to live in a world of unselfishly loving people who are kind and care about each other, you simply need to be like one of those people. I agree with that 100%. And that's the energy that you will have and you will be putting out. And that's the energy that's going to find you attractive. It will come to you. Doing that now, that's a little difficult, but we can pay attention to ourselves. When are we being when are we being selfish? When are we not being loving? When we blame, when we pass judgment, when we are angry, when we justify ourselves by making yourself big, putting others down, all feeding your ego. Ego's important, but ego in service of yourself, or is it in service of the soul?
Yeah.
So when you notice it, then you can take a look. Oh, I'm doing that. What can I do instead?
Yeah.
And if half of the time, I think, or a lot of the time, I think that the what can I do instead becomes difficult when we're feeling it. We feel, oh, I'm betrayed. I'm unloved. I'm feeling this. And it hurts me, me. And it's a wonderful thing to teach yourself or to learn to recognize it and then give it over.
Indeed.
Just give it
Yeah,
over.
well said. I know that somewhere earlier in your remarks you were talking about the law of attraction, and it reminded me that, yeah, they don't talk about the law of attraction in those words, but I think it's implied in a lot of what Peniel shares about visualizations and creating things from thought, which I think is very much about that kind of thing. Oh, what do you think, Neely? Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I just love those four passages that you chose because they portray so well, the law of one. Everything, we are all one, everything is one. And then they're talking about service to self and service to others in
Yeah.
not so many words, in different words. Terminology is different, but I'm just, it's so simple, really, right? If you want to see a world that is good and kind, be good and kind. Very, very simple. The one thing that I would want to maybe open up a little bit more is that they say that all of the trouble in the world is about selfish people acting selfishly. I would want to add in that sometimes obstacles, catalysts happen in the world because of programming that you set for yourself. So just looking at a more holistic picture, yes. And also, there are a lot of things that are happening in the world, specifically right now as we're coming closer to harvest, that are meant to wake people up. They are meant to pull people out of the sinkhole of indifference. And that is why they're happening, not necessarily selfish people being selfish. This is a little bit more simplistic, but also valid.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And he never uses the term service to self or service to others. But yes, he refers very often to selfish people acting selfishly and in every other way describing service to self. So, as you mentioned, they're kind of missing the larger holistic from a distance view of it. And I'm pretty sure we're going to get into that in one of our future passages. Otherwise, Diane, anything to add?
Nope, nope, just what I said.
That's good. I'm sorry, I think I lost track on my note taking. Did I miss anyone? Did everyone have a chance to share?
Elijah, Elijah.
Elijah, I'm sorry.
I'll jump in here real quick. Go on, Jonathan. No. I wanted to add as well this, like, as I was reading the book, I had this love frustration relationship with the language that the author uses, Jon Peniel uses. And this line, like the delusion that we are separate from the one and the selfishness that results from that delusion. Like it's very, it captures your attention. And I feel like he maybe deliberately uses this kind of language in a, I don't want to say antagonistic, but in a way that kind of grips you and like wants you to engage with the material. Um,
He's
so I
very
thought that was,
polarized, definitely
yeah,
coming from a very positively polarized perspective.
absolutely. And then the second point I wanted to make is this hermetic philosophy and the idea of the principle of correspondence, so that you become the thing to experience the thing. And that intent that you anchor within the self, you need to do that within the self to see that reflected outside of yourself. And I think that is captured very well here in if you want to live in an unselfishly loving world, be an unselfishly loving person.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I think that echoes very nicely what we've heard from Quo and Rob many times, which is that if you really want to change the outer world, the best way to do it is to change the inner world. And that changing the world really starts with changing yourself, focus on yourself. I strongly agree. Oh, yeah, anybody else have any other thoughts on this slide before we look at something else? Well, let's take a look at a couple passages on the fall from oneness. Here, Jon Peniel said, the historical records start with the premise that there is one great being, God or universal spirit, that is all things, including the universe itself. It divides or multiplies within itself to create us. Thus, our history begins with all of us, humans essentially, being part of and one with God. The records describe us as being spiritual or angelic beings, free to roam, create, and enjoy the universe. The teachings go on to say that our beginnings on Earth came in two steps, a first wave and a second wave of human and semi-human materialization into physical bodies on Earth. At the time, we had the ability to instantly alter our vibration and instantly create anything we desired with a mere thought. It was in this way that we thought ourselves into matter, into material existence on Earth, which began our fall from our angelic state, oneness with God. Yeah, so beautiful how it so well describes the idea of oneness that we've seen in the L&L channelings, and this idea of separation from God and the ability to create things from thought echoes a lot of what they talked about in time-space versus space-time, where thoughts are material. What do you think? I think Diane is next in the order. Diane, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, it seems like it was a big oops on our part. We lowered our vibration so much that we could experience this materiality, but once our vibration was so lowered, well, now we're stuck and we forgot. And now we have to bring ourselves, as we know, as we've been taught, that we have to bring ourselves back. We used to be one with everything. And as we got stuck into materiality, we lost that ability. We started thinking we were separate. We started thinking each individual person, I am all that is. No, you aren't. You are, well, yeah, you are. In some ways. Yes, you are. But we forgot.
Yeah.
And when we harm others, we're harming ourselves too. And we forgot that.
Yeah, they never make references to anything like the veil of forgetting that we hear about from Ra and Quo, and yet it is implied, like you're saying, that in the process of going from that very high, fine vibration into the lower, coarse vibrations of physical matter, it meant a lot of things were forgotten, including the oneness part, for sure. What do you think, Elijah? Anything to add?
What occurred to me most when I was reading this passage in the book is I like how it recontextualizes the fall from the angelic state. In like a lot of literature, and especially like religious literature, the fall from the angelic state was like a rebellion against God. But here it seems like it was initially happened as a response of just being curious, wanting to experience the slowing down of the vibratory state, and just to see what it's like to be a physically incarnate entity. And everything that resulted from that was the result of just being curious, not really knowing the consequences of doing so.
Yeah.
And so I like how it recontextualizes that. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and I believe Quo has spoken more than a few times about waves of wanderers that incarnated in waves on Earth. As I was reading this, though, I think I came to the realization that I don't think they're talking about wanderers here. To me, they're not describing what we think of as wanderers. This is something that preceded that. It was the very first time these spiritual forms incarnated at all on this planet. Are you getting it that way, Elijah, or do you see it a different way?
No, I definitely see it as the latter, as what you've just said, as like this was the, I guess, the primordial fall from that angelic state.
Yeah,
Wanderers came way, way, way after that.
yeah,
Or wanderers as described by Ra and Quo, for sure.
agreed. Oh, what do you think, Neely? Any thoughts on anything here?
Yes, I really love the way that they described oneness and what it meant to separate from oneness. And I feel that by describing, the naivety and the curiosity and the real desire to learn more, it kind of speaks to, creating, wanting to know himself, right? Creating, wanting to know itself
For
by
sure.
doing that. And there was a lot of talk both with Kuo and with Ra about the naivety of entities that are not interdensity, not in the material world. And I feel that it's a good description about the mechanics, maybe, of the veil. So, why do we forget? We forget because we become so embedded into the material world, that we're kind of stuck and we become more and more engrossed with materiality that we no longer focus on anything spiritual. So, I found that it was a really interesting slant on the story.
Yeah, earlier in the hour, you had kind of talked about how we don't really have the larger from a distance vision here that we get from Ra and Quo channelings. And I think that part you were mentioning a couple minutes ago about how so much of Quo and Ra channelings are about how this is all the creator learning more about itself. That's a perspective that definitely does not seem to come up anywhere in Children of the Law one, as far as I can tell. Great thoughts. I do have another passage that I think kind of adds on nicely to what we saw here. Did anybody have any comments about this passage before we look at another one on the same subject? Let's take a look at this one. I don't know where it came in the book, if it was before or after the last one, but it's in the book. And here Peniel says, "Remember, we were spirits only, very fine, high frequency vibrational beings with no experience in this physical realm. These humanimals came upon their terrible fate because of a rapid, uncontrolled slowing down of their vibrational frequencies for purposes of materialization of their spiritual selves into the material plane of the earth. It occurred in a way that cut them off from their normal consciousnesses, like changing the dials on a radio to an area of radio frequency that had nothing to receive. Their internal radio of consciousness was no longer tuned in to God. It was a materialization that went too far, too deep into the dense, slow vibrations of the physical plane. When the finer frequencies were cut off, they were left cut off from God and the rest of spiritual creation, and thus the consciousness of the oneness of the universe, the consciousness of God, the universal spirit. This left them with only a separate self-consciousness that lost touch with oneness consciousness or universal consciousness." Yeah, so many of the same concepts, just using different words from one infinite creator or one original thought or intelligent infinity. Universal spirit, I think, is kind of the same idea. I really love the language here of talking about it in terms of very fine, high frequency vibrations going into slower vibrations of the physical realm. It really resonates as true with me, even though I don't really remember it being described that way by Ra or Quo. Do you remember anything like that, or does this? Any thoughts on this, Elijah?
This is just, to me, is so interesting, just conceptualizing how that first wave, according to Jon Peniel, would have felt these humanimals, those human animal hybrids, and the shock to the system, almost as if you were dropping from maybe seventh density down to like early second density, and it would be a complete obliteration of connection to God consciousness. And I like how Jon Peniel explains that process here. Um, and how
I
that
have
relates.
one question for you. Do you mind if I interrupt to ask you a
Yeah,
question?
go for it, yeah.
Because it is interesting that he uses the word humanimals here, because everywhere else I've seen it, that word refers to the created life forms, the human animal hybrids that were created by the, let's say, negatively polarized Atlanteans who were misusing this spiritual power. And yet here they really seem to be describing it as like not entities, life forms that were created by others. Any thoughts on that, Elijah? Are you reading it the same way as I am, or are you seeing it a different way?
Well, in the Children of the Law of One, it does state that, and I think it brings up the Sons of Belial a little later as a passage that you've included. But
Right.
the first waivers were the humanimals, the human animal hybrids, whereas the second waivers came in with the intent to, I guess, rescue the first waivers who had been completely disconnected from their conscious connection to God or the Creator. And a faction of the second waivers, which are the Sons of Belial, rather than rescue the humanimals from the first wave, sought to enslave them for their own benefit.
Right.
And so this story of the Atlanteans creating human animal hybrids, I think, is also true, but I guess their inspiration for these experiments came from the fact that the first waivers were already incarnate, and perhaps they
So
wanted.
you're thinking the humanimals is referring to that first wave
Yeah.
I think
of
so,
incarnate
yeah,
entities. Oh,
and
interesting.
perhaps the Atlanteans wanted to create more of them, and that's where
Oh,
they
interesting.
began their experiments. I don't know.
Neely, I saw you nodding your head. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so the way that I see it, the humanimals are just different second density animals, which are the bodies into which they incarnated. So if we're looking at in the terminology of the law of one, we are mind, body, and spirit. Our bodies are a second density creature. So right now we have that ape form, but if I remember correctly from the book, they incarnated into sheep and into goats and into different animals.
Well,
So I
like
think,
centaurs and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I think so. But
interesting.
but that only means like they use the term humanimal just to kind of okay, these are the first waivers that their
Right,
animal instincts, their second
right,
density bodies were so
right.
strong that they took away their expanded consciousness.
Interesting. That makes sense. I had not thought of it that way, but hearing the two of you explain it that way, yes, that does make sense to me. Did you have anything to add on this, Diane?
I'm just loving that very fine, high frequency vibrational beings comment. My upbringing, my words that I had were that when we certainly are spiritual beings, and that when we return after this incarnation, what we want to do is earn by what we do here to raise our frequency enough that we earn our high frequency body back, our
Yeah,
spiritual glory. The term I always heard was your glorious spiritual body of light.
yeah,
And that's our natural state. And
right,
but we have to raise our vibration to even try to get back there.
right,
It's a tough thing we did. It's a tough
right.
place we are. And I think that's what's happening now. That
For
as we're
sure,
raising our vibrations, then the help doesn't have to go so far. So the
for
more
sure,
we raise our vibration, the more we can get help from those
for
who are
sure.
still, in their spiritual state.
Yeah, that all makes perfect sense to me. I got Nothing to add to that. Does anybody have any other thoughts to add on this passage before we take a look at a different topic?
Yeah, just one small comment. What I'm missing in this story is the stages. So in this
Hmm.
story, there was the one infinite creator, and then the spirits, and then they came down to earth. I'm missing the logoi and the sub-logoi and the sub-sub-logoi. So it was, according to Wright, was a more gradual
Right.
process.
Right. Yeah, and densities, it's worth noting that there's really no discussion of anything like densities in
Right.
this book. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Anybody else? Anything to add? Cool. Well, let's take a look at a couple things that have been referenced to already, and that is children of the law of one and the sons of Belial. Belial, I think, is what I saw when I looked up how to pronounce that word, but I believe there are different pronunciations as well, so I don't know. So here, Peniel says, as the second wave rescue mission gradually descended into materiality and human form, some of them, lured by selfish desires, turned away from the children's spiritual path. They then lost spiritual awareness and separated from oneness with God. Ultimately, this division created two religious or philosophical groups in Atlantis with very different purposes and politics, the sons of Belial and the children of the law of one. The sons of Belial mimicked the children in many ways, even in the sense of being spiritual or religious, but their religious practices were mockeries of true spirituality, phony, empty, and self-serving. They would use prayer and visualization to attain whatever they wanted, and they turned a blind eye to what the repercussions of getting what they wanted would have on others. Some popular present-day religions are offspring of the Belialian religion. And then there are the secret societies that still practice their original ways. In Atlantis, the most significant contention between the children and the Belialians was over what to do with the humanimals. The humanimals were easily controlled by the powers of a second waver's mind, and they could be made to do anything just through visualization. Since the Belialians had turned away from their awareness of oneness with God in favor of selfishness, they wanted to use the humanimals as pet slaves. The children, however, still wanted to help return the humanimals to their higher state of consciousness. Thus, the children also became activists, and their goal as a group movement was still to free their trapped kin, but now they also had to contend with other second wavers who had gone bad. Yeah, really interesting. And again, I believe here the humanimals, I think, could well be interpreted as a reference to the life forms that were created by the, I don't know, second or third wave of sons of Belial. Oh, what do you think? And, any thoughts on anything here, Neely?
Yeah, definitely a really good description of the service to self polarity of people just thinking about how they can manipulate others in order for themselves to gain a profit in whatever way there is. And these are things that we can see in the spirituality world until today. I mean, let's talk about religion for a minute. Every religion that tells you that in order to be a believer or part of the religion, it requires the annihilation, the subjugation, or the shunning of anyone who's not part of their religion. This is not a religion that's coming from the love of God. This is not loving. So we can see that echoed in a lot of today's religions. And also, there is a very big spiritual movement that teaches people how to manifest more money, how to manifest, the person of their dreams, no matter what that person's free will is. So there's a lot of that still going on in the world and echoing
For sure.
the Atlantean days, and that's just super interesting.
Yeah.
And another thought about humanimals, it kind of makes me wonder whether the humanimals keep living reincarnated today sitting very, very deeply in the sinkhole of indifference. So being very easily manipulated to go to war, believing that war is just and it needs to be done, things like that.
Yeah, interesting thought. I hadn't really considered the second part of what you're saying, but yeah, for sure. I think I was picking up on the same things as you in the reference to religious practices that mimic the children in many ways, but are mockeries in terms of being phony, empty, and self-serving. It certainly made me think of folks I might consider to have conservative Christian theology that seem to be very much about service to others things, but really support people who are doing insanely service to self things and things that go totally against the teachings of the entity known as Christ, as I know at least. Oh no, what do you think, Diane? Any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, that section where he says, and they turned a blind eye to what the repercussions of getting what they wanted would have on the others. I think that is the biggest problem. And whatever we're looking into something, even if it's just something I personally want, I want more money, I want this or the other. However you are looking at this, it's very important that we always consider the highest good of everyone involved, not just you, not just your family, but all those other people that might be involved too. That's going to change what we do, I hope.
Well, and that's a key part of the service to others path, I would think, is thinking about how your choices affect others. And I would think that is a key part of the service to self path, which is not thinking or not caring about how your actions may hurt others. I think it just goes with polarity. I don't know, what do you think, Elisha? Anything to add?
Just building off of what Diane said, if we could even think about how our actions today could potentially impact several generations in the future,
Yeah.
I think is really important. Very grounded in a lot of indigenous ontology as well. But what Neely said as well about the reference to using prayer and visualization to attain what you want. You can see practices like that being rampant in like the new age spirituality
Yeah,
spaces.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting and just interesting to consider that if we believe a lot of what this book is saying to be true, um, the offshoots of, I guess, religions that may have come from the sons of Belial or the children of the Law of One, and just thinking about what that looks like today is a fun little exercise I like to do with myself.
Yeah, which I think is actually a great segue into the second passage I had on this topic. Did anyone
Perfect.
else have anything to add on this before we look at another one? Here, again, I don't know where it is in the book, it's somewhere in the book. Peniel says, lifetime after lifetime, they maintain their maniacal drive for power and agenda of slavery. Wow, this probably does continue from the previous slide. Lifetime after lifetime, they maintain their maniacal drive for power and agenda of slavery and domination. Many of them are the people who run the world. The upper echelon are the real power people, pulling the strings behind the scenes. Like initiate monks of the children, the higher level Belialians are totally conscious and aware of who they are and what they are doing. The middle and lower echelon are sometimes in the forefront or in the public eye, functioning as political, military, or business leaders who apparently not being told what to do, yet they really are. Of course, some leaders are just pawns and not consciously aware of who they serve and wouldn't care anyway. Belialians are usually born to rich and powerful families who are already of the Belialian heritage, and their families train them and continue to pass on their tradition. They go to the best schools and join the right, special fraternities and sororities. They are trained in the ways of using visualization and ritual to practice their dark magic. They always want more money and power. They want to maintain economic slavery and child labor slavery in the world, and even worse, they want a state of total monitoring and control of all people, and they have been making great strides in this. They will use physical force to dominate and control if necessary, but mental programming through education, media, peer pressure, or other means has been extremely successful, and parents continue to pass their own programming on to their children also. Examine world history, and you see these struggles continuing through time. Entire groups of evil oppressors trying to enslave. We have continued to fight them, and they continue to fight us. A lot of interesting things we could look at and hear and pick apart and hear, and I would love to hear folks' thoughts on this. But as Elijah, I think, was saying in the previous passage, wow, I'm reading this, and so much of this seems to be describing so accurately what I'm seeing happening in the world right in front of me. I think it is amazingly prophetic. And this was in 1998. That was more than a little while ago. Oh, what do you think, Diane? Any thoughts on anything here?
Love, love, love. Throw some love at it. It is scary. Uh, and we do educate ourselves. There, I get that there are those that will educate just them on how to do this, but we also can educate ourselves and educate our children to love and throw love at it. You don't have to agree with something, but you don't get into that war state yourself.
Right.
It's a tough thing to stay, keep it in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Keep
Well,
that.
that's part of that higher perspective. I think that we keep
Yeah.
saying that is very clear in the Law of One in the Raw and Quote channelings, and really doesn't come out here. There's nothing here about loving STS entities. It's all about fighting them and going to war with them. Yeah, which reminds me a lot of the thought wars that are described by fourth density social memory complexes by Ra. Because they said fourth density is the only density besides third that lacks the wisdom to refrain from battle. So these are clearly entities that are really locked into their polarity and into the idea of always having to fight those on the negative path. What do you think, Elijah? Anything to add?
What you just said just then was what I had written down on my notes, that lack of wisdom to refrain from conflict or battle. And that permeates through this book. And I do love this book, but it's very clearly written from the perspective of positively oriented entities who still see the necessity to engage in battle and that kind of war mentality. Um,
It's so easy to get suckered into it. So easy.
Especially when the world almost wants to suck you into that.
For sure.
It's designed very much to facilitate that conflict. And like you
For
said,
sure.
this book being written in 1998, yet having quite a accurate depiction of present day conflicts is something that
Yeah.
interested me a lot when I was reading it as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it is so easy to get tricked into fighting wars of one polarity against the other and seeing your side as the good side and the other side as the evil side. There was a podcast episode we did not too long ago on thought wars where we looked at a lot of passages about the things that we've been referring to in terms of fourth density social memory complexes not having gained the wisdom to refrain from battle and how these battles seem to continue from third and fourth density. Check it out if you're interested, viewers. Otherwise, Neely, anything to add here?
Yeah, firstly, I just loved, Diane, what you said about throwing love back at the STS entities, and that is really the only way for us to move ahead. I feel that as we're coming closer and closer to harvest, these events and those STS entities are trying harder and harder and harder to keep as many people as possible in the sinkhole of indifference, but
For sure.
also by doing that, they also unintentionally wake a lot of people up.
Mhm.
And you know, I don't know if you guys remember, but there was something about the space pirates that really touched my soul. And the space pirates, for those who don't know, are, I believe, fourth density entities.
Fifth.
fifth density entities who go from planet to planet and they feed on chaos and fear and anger and bellicosity and violence. And so by doing that, they're trying to maintain us in the sinkhole forever, so we will be the source of energy for them.
Right.
And I that's one of the stumbling blocks that I had with this book is in the sinkhole. If you still, maintain that there needs to be war, then you will stay in the sinkhole of indifference. Only when you take the higher ground and see, that we are all one, and the quote unquote negative Belialians, I don't know how to pronounce it, they are also on their own path to the creator, and
Right.
they're doing their service to the creator by taking
Right.
that standpoint. And
Right.
so, yeah, I
That's a big
definitely,
difference. That's a
yeah,
big, big difference. Nowhere in the Children of the Law of One is the service to self path acknowledged as an equally valid path to the Creator, as in the Law of One blinks not at the light or the darkness, but is available to both paths. Definitely do not get that elevated perspective in this book.
yeah.
So,
I
yeah.
vote for love. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why I think we can all agree none of this is a good replacement for the Law of One from Ra and Quo. It's not at the same level, but it's a worthy supplement. It's worthy addition to what's been said.
For
Thank
sure.
you.
I've always thought of it as it's a good complement to a larger work of study.
Yeah,
Like if you want that more, I guess, grounded human seeking the creator perspective, I think this does that really well. But
for
then
sure.
to have that in conjunction with the larger law of one perspective, I think is a
For
very
sure.
good balance.
Yeah, I just look at it as a great case study of the
Sure.
positively polarized Atlanteans who Ra said fled to Tibet. This looks like a record of that group and what happened to
Yeah.
them. And that's cool, interesting enough on its own.
One thing that I really like about the way this book is written is that a lot of it is a story. And us
Yeah.
humans, we love listening to
Yeah.
stories and going through a story. Whenever I bump into a Quo or Latouille parable, I'm just so immersed in it. So that's a really good way of telling the story. Yeah.
Well said. Yeah, beautifully said. Does anybody have anything else to add on this slide before we change topics? Look at
Just
another passage.
while we're still on this topic, I think it like I absolutely agree with everything Neely and Diane have said about giving love to the negative polarity. They probably need it the most. But um I always think it's fun to consider like if we as humans put ourselves in a perspective of being met with a group of entities who had just burned down our home and murdered all of our friends, and
Which is part of the story that we have not mentioned yet.
which is part, it's in the book that this happened. And
Yeah,
so from that perspective, like how well would we be able to keep our hearts open to people doing that to us?
for sure.
And so I think the language that and the perspective that the author has it throughout this book probably very much reflects his own experiences
For sure.
with these forces of Sons of Belial, whatever you want to call them. But
For sure.
yeah,
Yeah, two things I wanted to offer as a side note. For those who didn't know, the word Belial is a biblical term. I believe it's been used in the Bible, and I believe it translates as something like worthless or wicked or evil or something to that effect. And also, I did want to note that if you go on Facebook and search on Facebook, there is a group called Children of the Law of One, who I believe is made up of folks who are still following that philosophy to today. And I joined that group a number of years back, and the person who wrote the foreword for that book was in that Facebook group and was an admin. She was older in her years, and I left that group a while ago, so I have no idea if she's still alive, but I believe that group is still active. So if you want to see what that group looks like today, check them out. Otherwise, why don't we go ahead, move ahead, and look at a passage on reality. What a concept. This is one of my favorite passages that I remember stuck with me for a while after I read this book. The illustration that you see in the upper right-hand corner was, in fact, from the book. Here, Peniel says, let's say there's a classic car in a parking lot. The car is badly damaged on one side, but looks like new on the other. Two people going through the parking lot walk by the car, one on each side. One person's point of view is from the bad side, one from the good. As they walk by, they each see the car, make a judgment, and form clear, solid beliefs about the car. And each person's belief opposes and contradicts the others. One believes that the car is in impeccable classic condition and very valuable. To the other person, the car is in such bad shape they couldn't even tell it was a classic. It just looks like an old junk car to them. And that's what that person believes the car is, an old junker. They are both right from their point of view. Yet, if you could see the entire car from above, from our point of view, they are both totally right and both totally wrong. How can they both be right when each viewpoint would seem to make the other wrong or impossible to be true? And how can they both be wrong when they are obviously both right from their point of view? The fact is that when you simultaneously grasp the two contradictory yet true beliefs, you actually have the greater truth about the car. The predicament of having two truths, each of which seems to make it impossible for the other to be true, is a crude sort of paradox, and a paradox is the closest thing you can get to the real truth or whole truth on the earth plane. This example shows us how we can see the whole truth if we get above and beyond each person's point of view. Only then can we see the whole picture. Really ironic, since we were talking about the missing, larger from a distance whole picture of the Law of One from this group. But I gotta say, as much as I understand the concept, and I do agree with the general concept, I think I still have a little bit of an issue with what seems to be the implication that both of these people's perspectives are equally right and equally wrong, and that there's really no such thing as objective reality. Because one person is saying the car is in classic condition and very valuable. The other person says it looks like an old junker and is not valuable. And I'm thinking that person is probably more accurate, because if the owner of this car tried to sell it, I don't think they're going to get a good price for it. I think it's going to be considered a junker by anyone who wants to buy it. So I have a little bit of an issue with this metaphor. And with that, let me pass it on to Elijah. What do you think? What's your thoughts on this?
I thought of something very different. It's like if you're trying to say that a car is in mint condition without ever looking at the other side of the car, then can you actually objectively state that that's true? And so
Good point.
I do somewhat agree with the sentiment that the closest we can get to an objective view of reality is to embrace paradoxes or seemingly contradictory truths or half-truths. And I do like how that was expressed here in the book. But
Sure.
I think that using the example of the car, I do think back on that, and yes, it's a good example, but when you start to pick it apart a bit more, it starts to fall apart a little bit.
Right.
But it's still...
Yeah, and I do get that, yes, as Ron and Quo have both said, paradox is a really key part of third density. So learning how to be cool with paradoxes, I agree, is an essential part. It's just that, again, I'm kind of getting the implication from this that every view is equally valid.
Yeah.
And it suggests that there's no such thing as objective truth or no difference between truth and falsity. So does that mean the person who says 1 + 1 = 2 and the person who says 1 + 1 = 5, that they're both equally right? I don't
Both
think
equally
so.
right, both equally wrong.
I don't know. Yeah, what do you think, Neely?
Yeah, people would say that 1 + 1 is always and only 2, and that's the issue here.
What do you think, Neely?
Well, I want to remind all of us what Ra had said about paradoxes. So in session 90, question 29, Ra had said, "We came to your peoples to enunciate the law of one. We wish to impress upon those who wish to learn of unity that in unity all paradoxes are resolved. All that is broken is healed. All that is forgotten is brought to light." So this is like the highest possible view on a topic. It definitely says that there is no paradox. All of it is resolved, right? So just as an example, let's talk about a person who is really dedicated to service to others, right? And they will go out of the way to do something for another, even though they are sick, cannot go out of bed, have a terminal disease, they will go and still physically help somebody else and to the detriment of their own health, right? So where is the balance? It's a paradox there. If they would have helped themselves, they would have been better positioned to help somebody else. Is it service to self? Is it service to others? So you can look at the truth from many, many, directions. And when you look at all of it together, this is when you see the truth. So when you go up to unity, this is where the truth is revealed.
Yeah, and I think that kind of is part of my issue with this, the difference between a true statement and a false statement. It reminds me of what Ross said in regard to the matrix of the spirit, that to embrace falsity, to know it, to seek it, and to use it gives a power that is most great. And I would say, yes, I have seen that happening. I have seen people definitely applying that and saying things that I think any reasonable person would agree are false statements and using that to increase power for themselves. So this passage from the book here, that seems to be suggesting, you never know the difference between truth and false, and the true statement and the false statement are both equally legitimate. That's where I'm having a little bit of difficulty accepting that. What do you think, Diane? Any thoughts on that? Anything here?
Oh, we are such a complicated species. Yes, nearly everything you said. And I want to add a little more to that is like, who determines what the help is? What if you're helping somebody whose really desire is, look, I'm old, I'm frail, I'm peaceful, let me go. But you feel, no, I'm gonna help, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna pray over you, but I don't want that. So it seems like a war of opinions.
That's different, though. I mean, that's a very personal life decision. I'm talking about like factually, objectively true
I'm
versus
talking
false
about
statements.
every time I'm talking about that, and every time people go to court, every time there's a crime, there's always a lot of factions. The only other thing that I thought of, as soon as I was reading this, my mind went back to Neil Armstrong talking about truth's protective layers. And everybody's got their own version of the truth. So, what is the truth?
Yeah, interesting thoughts, and don't necessarily have to all agree on everything. So I definitely appreciate everything that's been shared, and your opinions are all valid and legitimate to me, whether I agree with them or not. Did anybody else have anything to say about this passage before we look at something else? One last passage, I believe.
I think it's a good, I guess, metaphor for how perspective can at best be subjective. Like one person's perspective cannot really, I guess, give weight to objective reality unless it contains the unity aspect of that, in which all of the creation is in agreement with that perspective.
So are you saying that if both these people in this picture walked around the car, did a whole 360 and saw both sides, and one person says, well, half the car is pretty badly damaged and the other half is in pretty good shape, and the other person says, no, both halves of the car are either badly damaged or in really good shape, that those are both equally objectively true statements?
Well, I think if they both did a full cycle of the
That's what
car,
I'm saying.
they would both agree that the car is in not good condition.
But what if they don't? What if one
What if they
person is saying
don't?
that's not the case? Is that person's opinion equally, well, is that person's belief equally valid?
In their own story of
To them,
reality,
it
it
is.
is valid to them. It's not necessarily valid to you.
Exactly. To
Okay.
them, it's totally true, and that's the that's the where the conflict arises.
That would definitely explain why the world is as it is today. That definitely explains a lot of what I'm seeing happening around. Much appreciate it. And like I said, yeah, it's okay. We don't have to agree on everything. And if you are watching this, I'm sure you have your own perspective on this as well. Want to go ahead, take a look at one last passage on vibrations. Here, Peniel says, the universal law of vibration automatically creates changes of associates when you change. Oil and vinegar are of different molecular vibrations, and they will each seek their own level, even if you mix them up. If a part of the oil changed to become vinegar, it would join the vinegar level and be surrounded by vinegar, and vice versa. As you change your level of consciousness, your vibration, to a higher one, you rise to a new level where new higher consciousness friends will be found. Those of the old vibration that do not change as you do may try to hold you down, but if they are unsuccessful, they generally just ultimately fall away and stay behind in their own choice of worlds, their own choice of consciousness, all of their own accord. To them, your changes make you weird, boring, and no fun. And to you, they also become uninteresting, shallow, and boring. When this happens, it may initially feel like a loss, but when you merge into your new higher level of consciousness and find those who belong with you on the same level, it feels wonderful. It is an incredible feeling to find your new higher companions, soulmates, or soul group family. Love this passage, and I think it seems to describe very well what I'm kind of seeing also, which is just kind of a natural sorting process, not just between third density and fourth density, but even within both of those densities, people are just kind of naturally gravitating towards who they kind of vibe with, and maybe less with people that they don't vibe with. That's something I would say I've seen quite a bit. What do you think, Neely? Any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, I can also attest to the fact that this thing is definitely happening. Just kind of like people disappearing from your life, not because you had a falling off, just because it no longer vibrates with you. And it brings me back to what Diane said at the beginning of the conversation today about the law of attraction. Like attracts like. So more and more you find yourself vibrating with or being with people who vibrate the same way that you do. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that the interesting correlation between this and the way that Ra described seniority of vibration, because they also used an analogy of liquids.
Nice.
Yeah.
Appreciate you bringing that up. I was going to mention that at some point we did do a podcast episode on seniority of vibration, episode 48, that uses a lot of those same visuals and metaphors to see how the more you learn from your various incarnations, the more seniority of vibration you get. What do you think? Diane, anything to add?
Yeah, everything that he's right. Very well put. And I just think of it. We even have it in our language. We talk about things like birds of a feather flock together. We know this, but we're understanding it, I think, at a higher level. And I do think it's happening faster. Everything is happening much, much faster than it used to, including the falling away. As we go, it fascinates me, the people that just disappear, and you go, what just happened? But then these amazing people up here. That's wonderful.
Super wonderful. Yeah. Oh, Elijah, anything to add?
Good tribes bring good vibes. And
Nice.
I think every one of us on the seeker's path can relate to this, and in that, well, I'll just talk about myself specifically, but when I began going through my own lifting of my own personal veil, I lost the majority of my friends because they just did not understand what I was trying to say or the experience that I was going through. And but at the same time, going through that, you encounter people who are complementary to that path, and you
Mhm.
meet your soul group, you meet your people who deeply resonate to your vibration of experience. And it's there's nothing wrong uh with not being able to understand, because those people are going to go find people who they can understand with.
Right,
And
right.
it's the different polarities, the different densities of the liquids all
Yeah.
finding like, and it's beautiful.
It is. It is a beautiful natural thing, and I think provides a good plug for study groups. It's a really good reminder that if you don't have anybody you can have these conversations with, yeah, I really encourage you to find a study group. If you enjoy these podcasts but haven't joined us on a Tuesday, Saturday Zoom session, which we do not record, then yeah, go back to watch the introduction to find out how to contact us and hook up. And we'd love to hang out with you in our study group. Or go to the list of study groups at the LNL Research website shown on your screen and connect on the click on the Connect tab at the top and select study groups and look at the list of study groups there in your area and yeah, check them out. Find one that you vibe with. And as Ross said, those who together seek shall far more surely find. And with that, why don't we go ahead and wrap this up? Did want to remind our viewers one more time that today we've been discussing the book called Children of the Law of One by Jon Peniel, published in 1998. If you want to read it, check it out. Get a copy from Thrift Books, unless you really want to give your money to Jeff Bezos's billionaire private space program. There's other places you can get your book from, and I am not getting paid by thriftbooks.com. I've just used them many times. Highly recommend them. So where do we go here from here? What are some takeaway lessons we might have from our almost hour and a half long conversation today? I have five for your consideration. If you can remember that the children of the Law of One were probably those positively polarized Atlanteans whom Ra said fled to Tibet. That would be a good context for this. The sons of Belial referred to here were negatively polarized Atlanteans who created what is called here humanimals, hybrids of humans and animals, as slaves and used spiritual power for selfish or service to self purposes. And like the L&L channelings, there's a lot in this book about oneness and about the two polarities. Unlike the L&L channelings, there's really nothing about seeing the creator self and service to the self entities, nothing about needing both the light and dark for wholeness, nothing about responding to the negative polarity with love rather than fighting. Unlike fifth or sixth density beings, these folks seem to lack the wisdom to refrain from battle. Any takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add, Diane?
Yeah, keep your eyes open. Pay attention. I think we need to look at ourselves first. When we catch yourself. Are you living the law of one? Are you living what it is, or whatever you profess to be? And that includes letting others do it their way.
Yeah, well said. Totally agree, 100%. Elisha, anything you'd like to add? Any final thoughts or takeaway lessons of your own?
I'd just love to build off of what Diane just said, and just if there's anyone out there who are just beginning their seeking journey, I found it very helpful for me just to understand my intent. Like, why am I seeking these things, and what do I seek to get from them, and how can I use what I am seeking to better serve others in the future? And I think thinking like that when doing this study will help tremendously.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. Neely, anything to add?
I'm just loving what each and every one of you had said to sum it up. Maybe one additional thing, after you set your intent and you know what it is that you're seeking or why you are seeking, I would highly recommend to use your own discernment. So, not every piece of literature or prophecy or channeling that you read will resonate with who specifically you are and what is the specific path that you want to take. So, just try to feel, how does it land in your body? How do you feel about what you just read? Do you feel expanded after reading it? Do you feel, oh my God, now I have to absolutely do something or else? Kind of like use it as signposts to where it is you're trying to get.
So beautifully said. Yeah. Does it make you feel expanding or does it make you contract? Big lesson for sure. Did want to let our viewers know that if you enjoyed this podcast episode, check out episode 12 on Atlantis. A lot of great passages there from Ra and Quo about how Atlantis is a big part of today. It's not something from the past. It's a big part of what we're experiencing today. And it does tie in with our episode on Mars and Maldak that explains very similar things that happen on other planets. Check out the episode on Thought Wars and the aforementioned episode on time laterals and space pirates. It sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, and I've never seen this said anywhere else, but it really does seem to resonate as true and does align with a lot of what we've talked about today. Otherwise, did also want to encourage viewers, if you're interested, check out the 3 books, Edgar Cayce on Atlantis, Children of the Law of One, The Lost Teachings of Atlantis, and The Convoluted Universe by Dolores Cannon. I have read all 3, and I would recommend all 3 as, again, supplements to what was said in the Law of One L&L channeling sessions. Otherwise, time for pop quiz. Pop quiz, of course, is something we like to do at the end of our podcast, just to end our otherwise serious discussions and look for Law of One connections, maybe in pop culture. Since today our focus was on the children of the Law of One, it wouldn't really make sense that we would have a pop quiz on children's movies. So many different ones. Panelists, do you have any favorite children's movies that mean a lot to you or resonate with you?
My absolute favorite children's movie is Tarzan.
Oh, which one?
The Disney animated Tarzan. That was
nice.
My it just encouraged me to like get down on all fours and go climb the trees and
nice. The eucalyptus trees in Australia. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're tall trees too, so they get you up there.
I love The Lion King. That was one of my all-time favorite children's movies for sure. Neely, Diane, do you have any favorite children's movies?
I don't think Lion King is a children's movie. It's a brilliant movie for all ages.
For sure.
I like the one, and I don't know the name of it. The one with the house. It has the balloons on it and the old. Up.
Beautiful
yeah.
movie.
Thank you. Yeah.
Heartbreaker of a beginning, but it is a great movie. Yeah. Neely, you have any favorites?
Yeah, mine is The Princess Bride, forever and ever.
Yeah.
Classic.
Children's adult movie. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Not necessarily children's movie, but true love. That's all there is.
Yeah. That is definitely one of my top 5 all-time favorite movies, for sure. Well, panelists, I'm going to ask you 3 multiple choice questions about 3 children's movies that I would say are great movies that you may or may not have seen. See how many questions you can answer correctly. Panelists, go ahead, say your answers out loud so our viewers can hear you through space-time. Viewers, go ahead, say your answers out loud so we can hear you through time-space. As always, points don't matter. If you had fun, you won. If you learned something new about a Law of One connection in pop culture, you won as well. Ready for your first question, panelists?
Ready.
First question is about A Wrinkle in Time. What do the characters in A Wrinkle in Time use to travel through space and time? This is a great movie by Ava DuVernay, I believe, who came out a few years ago. Panelists, have you seen this movie? Has anyone seen this movie?
No, no.
I have not seen this movie, no.
You're going to have to give it your best guess then. What do you think that they used to travel through space and time? Was it A, a tesseract, B, a magic mirror, C, a stargate, or D, a black hole?
I'm going to go with B, the magic mirror.
B, magic mirror as well.
Nice.
I don't
Diane?
know what a tesseract is, so I'm going to say that.
Nice. Well, your instincts are good. Correct answer is indeed tesseract. For viewers who don't know, you can think of a tesseract as a four-dimensional cube. A tesseract is to a cube what a cube is to a square. Go meditate on that for an hour. It did actually come up in the Raw Contact at least once. In session 52, question 10, Don the questioner asked, "You were speaking of the slingshot effect, and that term has puzzled me. The only thing I can see is that you must put energy into the craft until it approaches the velocity of light, and this, of course, requires more and more energy. The time dilation occurs, and it seems to me that it would be possible to, by moving at 90 degrees to the direction of travel, somehow change the stored energy in its application of direction or sense so that you move out of space-time into time-space with a 90-degree deflection. Then the energy would be taken out in time-space and you would re-enter space-time at the end of this energy reversal. Am I in any way correct on this? Ra, I am Ra. You are quite correct, as far as your language may take you, and due to your training, more able than we to express the concept. Our only correction, if you will, would be to suggest that the 9 degrees of which you speak are an angle which may best be understood as a portion of the tesseract." I have read this passage over and over and over. I still don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Does anyone on the panel have any idea what Ra is talking about here?
I think my brain
just
just
think that-
exploded.
I just think that when two right angles come together, they make a square.
Right.
And that is as close as understanding that concept as I've gotten, is that it just completes. You leave on that angle, at right angle, you come in on the equal opposite right angle, and you've got the complete square, which is a tesseract.
That's as fair as anything I could come up with. Viewers, if you have any thoughts on this, go ahead and put it in the comments section. Otherwise, how about your second question? Hayao Miyazaki, who directed Princess Mononoke, also directed which of the following? A, Kiki's Delivery Service, B, Spirited Away, C, Howl's Floating Castle, or D, Ponyo? Panelists, do you know any of these movies? Do you know who this person is?
Yeah. I love Studio Ghibli, or Ghibli, however you pronounce it.
Nice.
I already said my answer. I don't know if we're answering this yet.
Oh, no, go for it. What's your answer?
B, C, and D. Could be A as well, but I don't know our A. So
Nice.
I'm just gonna go with the bottom
A?
three.
A is
Nice.
also Studio Ghibli, so I will say all four then.
All four of them then. There you go.
Diane, are you going to go with the consensus or are you going to go Maverick?
Sure. I'm copying their paper.
As well you should. You are 100%. Yeah, all of the above, indeed. For viewers who don't know, Hayao Miyazaki is a really great director who's made some of the most interesting, unique children's movies, including the ones that are mentioned there. Anyone who knows pop culture should be familiar with that name. The movies that they're talking about, this is Kiki's Delivery Service, Ponyo, Howl's Floating Castle, Spirited Away. All really weird, super interesting plots. Kiki's Delivery Service, about a young girl who's a witch who decides to start a delivery service. Ponyo, about a goldfish that turns into a person. And they involve witchcraft and magic, and like books of magical realism, the magic, it just seems to be part of their normal reality. And it's just done in a super imaginative way. I've never seen it from everyone else. Does anyone have any favorites of these four? Have you seen any of these, Neely or Diane?
No.
My absolute favorite is Spirited Away. Just that scene where like they're just stuffing their faces of food, and it traumatized me as a child, so it's always stuck with me.
Yeah, the Wikipedia description for Spirited Away from 2001 follows a young girl named Chihiro who moves to a new neighborhood and inadvertently enters the world of kami, spirits of Japanese Shinto folklore. After her parents are turned into pigs by the witch Yubaba, Chihiro takes a job working in Yubaba's bathhouse to find a way to free herself and her parents and return to the human world. That's just not something you're going to see made by a U.S. movie director or studio. Nobody would make a movie like that or finance anything like that. Same with all of these movies for sure. And Princess Mononoke has some beautiful environmental themes to it as well. How about your last question? In How to Train Your Dragon, the Viking villagers of Berk learn to do what with dragons? Is it A, fight them, B, kill them, C, befriend them, or D, free them? What do you think, panelists? Have you seen any of these movies? Has anybody seen any of these movies?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I haven't seen the live action version of it though, but I have seen the original animated versions. Yeah.
The animated version is so good. I didn't want to see the live action one.
That's like any live action remake. The original's always better.
Yeah, they're all shit.
I'm
So
gonna
what do you think?
say,
What's your
I'm
answer
gonna
here,
say D.
Elijah?
I'm gonna say
D.
D. Free them.
Nice.
Yeah. C, it's got to be between C or D, but I'm gonna go with C.
I go with C also. I like Friends.
I think the correct answer is all four.
Yeah.
The trilogy really does follow a beautiful story arc where originally they're trained to fight and kill dragons, but Hiccup, the loser son of the Viking chief, learns to befriend them, and they eventually become very close friends. And eventually, at the end, they have to free them and say, let them live their own lives independently. And it's a beautiful story. I've cried more than a few times watching these. They're really good, beautiful stories.
Yeah.
Great hero's journey for sure.
Yeah.
Panelists, as always, it's been a joy. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your love and wisdom. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all our friends at L&L Research, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To you who are watching this on video at some time in the near or maybe very distant future, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others, and for being part of our spiritual community in time-space. We're sending our love light, and we are receiving yours. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator. Adonai, namaste. Say goodbye, panelists.
Bye.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. Good talking.